Hi there, lovelies. I'm Rhonda Crimes. I'm a life and leadership coach supporting everyday people just like you to reflect and rework your everyday stories so you can step into the everyday leadership of your families and communities and create compelling, meaningful and fruitful lives every day. And today, let's talk about what's underneath. In the past week, it's pretty hard not to know something about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Most of my friends and followers have remained silent, perhaps from fear of confrontation with others or within themselves. It's always easier to ignore and hope something confronting will just fade away. I've used that tactic plenty of times in the past, and then some other of my friends have shared what I will call their discomfort with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. Not about the injustice toward him, but that this story is somehow taking away from the injustices of other countries, as historically oppressed and uneducated people violently and murderously rage against whomever they see as the representatives of that oppression. Not about his murder, but because he was a convicted felon with a rap sheet as long as your arm, culminating in the armed robbery and beating of pregnant Araceli Henriquez, and how he seems to be glorified as a gentle giant. Not about the video showing him handcuffed and pinned down, face down, by 3 police officers, pleading to be allowed to breathe as one of the police officers knelt on his neck for over 8 minutes, but of how he put himself in that situation, and now he is being held in such high regard as the martyred poster boy for the Black Lives Matter global campaign. Not that another family has been cast into mourning over the death of a father, brother and son at the hands of police, but that this now just adds all this racist crap to the corona crap, polluting their social media feeds, and they have to scroll more. You know, I get it at the entry level, but this is not an entry level topic. It is as deep as it is wide, and it is definitely not as simple as black or white. I also realise by this stage I may have lost some people who have their ideas fixed, or perhaps thinking that coaching isn't supposed to be political. Again, they are correct. Coaching isn't political, but questioning our beliefs is. If you've chosen to stick around, let me just explain. I'm an eternal optimist and a queen of curiosity, and I care deeply for the rights for all people to have their lives valued. I also know that beliefs are made when the same thing is thought or told over and over long enough that it's accepted as truth, and that my truth and your truth can be completely different. When that happens, instead of judgment, I try curious exploration, and me and Google get up close and personal. So I spent much of last Saturday morning researching into the history of white settlement in Africa, because my friends are correct. Murdering white South African farmers is not right, and it should be stopped. I totally agree. And I'm trying to educate myself on the history that has brought about these atrocities. Why is it happening? It's rooted in the systemic, structural and institutional racism and white privilege that was forged into the nation since the late 1600s. 400 years of people telling themselves Their depiction of the story is the truth. The age-old struggle of power over people, land and resources. And really sadly for those white farmers, the recent shift of power is devastating. Now, I don't know what the answer is for South Africa after just one Saturday morning, but I do know deep in my heart it doesn't lay at diminishing another's rally cry for solidarity to fight another nation facing systemic, structural and institutional racism and white privilege. Moving on, it took 0.28 seconds for Google to give me what it had on Araceli Henriquez, the poor woman who was robbed in her home back in 2007 by George Floyd and his accomplices. And in less than 5 minutes, I was able to get information from 3 separate fact-checking websites that show a post that was shared by my friend is inaccurate. In that post, the photo is of another woman, Andrea Sitignano, an American student who was reportedly assaulted and raped in Madrid in 2018. Andrea had posted these images of herself on a public Facebook post on the 19th of December 2018. Last week, on the 12th of June, Andrea took to Facebook again about the shared and inaccurate meme, saying, "Today my photo is being used as a political propaganda, clickbait, to make people believe that George Floyd deserved to die. I'm disgusted, humiliated. Not for myself, but for my country." It has then taken another couple of hours for me to research from more reputable websites rather than the random social media Sallys and Sams of the world. That 18-minute video by Candace Owens, also shared by a friend, contains inaccurate information intended to defame and embellish the facts. Let me share further what I've learned. So George did indeed have a criminal record. It started in 1997 as a 23-year-old for misdemeanor theft, drug offences, and then in 2001 as a 27-year-old for failure to identify to a police officer. That means he was put in jail for 15 days because he allegedly didn't give his name, address or birth date to a police officer arresting him for reasons unknown. The court records do not reveal why he was being originally questioned. His record concludes in 2007 as a 34-year-old, and that was the robbery he committed against Araceli Henriquez and consequently pleaded guilty to aggravated robbery with a deadly weapon in 2009. He served jail time until he was paroled in 2013 when he was 39. Of note, none of the court documents suggest she was pregnant, and while George did place a pistol against her abdomen, he didn't assault her. And there is also nothing else on his record after his release 7.5 years ago. I've included the links to these sites for your interest and education. Snopes.com references George's life up to his untimely death and beyond. It includes a brief background into his childhood, his criminal record, the 911 call from the store where he allegedly used a counterfeit $20 note, the details of the original police encounter with officers Lane and Kyung, and then the arrival of officers Chauvin and Tao. It goes on to provide the emergency services report and the first autopsy findings, and then the amended statement 2 days later. It includes toxicology reports taken the day after his death and states, "It's an exaggeration on the scientific evidence to claim Floyd was high on meth before police choked him, though his bloodstream did test positive for the drug." This was one of Candace's main arguments. Of note, another term I've learned is called just world hypothesis, which, according to Kevin O. Coakley, a psychology professor at the University of Texas at Austin, is a cognitive bias where people believe that the world is just and orderly, and people get what they deserve. It's difficult for people to believe that bad things can happen to good people, or to people who don't deserve it. This is because if people know that these things do happen, they have to decide whether they want to do something about it, or sit by silently knowing that there is an injustice happening around them. Finally, my friends, as for the crap that shows up on social, I agree it needs to go, not to be shared. Anyone can post on social, but you alone get to choose what you share or block or report. I would really encourage you to fact check inflammatory posts from sources you don't know. Just because your BFF shared it doesn't mean the originator is reputable. Like I said, it took less than half a second for me to find the reputable sources about George Floyd. I've only been going to reputable sites and listening to my own Premier's lives and his direct posts for information about COVID. By doing that, I don't get lots of crap across my feed until a friend shares it with me. So, I invite you to carry out your own research from reputable and unbiased sources before you hit share on the next post that's triggered an elevated emotional response to your beliefs and truths. Stephen Covey said, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. I really encourage you to use and choose wisely and from a place of curiosity, not judgment. Remember, it is okay to feel angry or sad or disgusted or frustrated or overwhelmed or anxious. These are natural mechanisms we have as humans to ask us to pay attention, that there is something that is about to happen or that doesn't align to what we recognize as safe or just or right. And we need to look into that in a healthy manner, not dismiss it or lash out at others. It's also a really good opportunity to ask yourself, what is underneath this emotional response? What can I learn about myself from it? What can I challenge in myself from this? Now, I know this has been a longer video, but it's something we all need to hear. And if you're still with me, I admire your support and tenacity, and I would welcome your feedback. Also, if maybe you're finding your emotions are running high at the moment, you can get a copy of my Managing Emotions booklet. The guide will help you to use the emotional wheel as a point of reference to identify and articulate what you're feeling. It will help you guide to list out the emotions that you feel most often, and also the ones you don't feel or you suppress and then get stuck in, or perhaps trigger responses that feel uncomfortable. You can get a copy of my Managing Emotions booklet, which includes the emotion wheel, at bit.ly/managing emotions with Rhonda. I've included the link in the post. I hope this has been educational today, and please remember, if your now is not the picture that you've painted for yourself, and you'd like any help on this discovery path, or maybe something completely different that you intuitively know or feel isn't letting your true colours shine through, please get in touch with me. You can do it really easily. Leave me a comment, send me a private message, drop me an email, or pop over to my Calendly online diary using the link I've provided, and we can set up an obligation-free curiosity call, and we can see if we're a good fit for each other. Much love until next time.